Hi y'all, Michelle Johnson here with Half Color Will Travel, and welcome back, finally, to my studio. I know it's been quite some time, about 6 months or so, since I've been able to film a new YouTube video for y'all. My life behind the scenes has been a little chaotic. There's been a lot going on for my family, but we're in a bit of a calm spot right now. So I thought I would come back and try to get back on the bike, as they say, and film a new video today. I have a lot of ideas in my head, but then I was like, I could do this, I could do that, and my brain started to get overwhelmed. So today I'm doing something simple. I'm going to talk to you about a challenge that I did this summer that I'm really proud to have completed. It was the 30 by 30 Direct Watercolor Challenge that was originated by Mark Terrell Holmes and Uma Kelker. I think it's Kelker. I will put that down. I will put the originator's content information down in the description for those of you that are interested in this challenge. But I did 30 by 30 Direct Watercolor this month in June. During this challenge, you paint for the whole month of June, 30 days, a new painting every day, in watercolor and directly or as directly as possible. And what that means is you don't use any pencil drawing. So there's no drawing of any kind, no preparatory drawing of any kind. You get your paints, you get your paper and your brush, and you just go. Ideally, you also paint en plein aire, meaning outside, and you paint from life. I did that as much as possible, but living in South Texas, there were days this summer that it was not safe for me to go outside and paint. So I rolled with the Texas punches through the time. I also only got about, 24 days. 24 is more than half of the month, but I only got 24 days straight of painting before my son needed to have 17 hours of surgery this June. So I had to get a little creative and be very kind and patient and compassionate with myself about finishing on time. I did not finish in 30 days. I finished in 2.5 months, but I'm very proud of the work that I did, and I thought that I might show you all of the 30 paintings so that you can see the process from beginning June 1st and finishing August 13th. But walking through that process with me of painting for 30 days straight, or painting for 30 days straight, taking a break, taking care of my son, coming back to reality, and then finishing. I learned a lot along the way in this challenge. I also came away with 4 things that I thought I might share with you today about what I would do differently next year, because I am going to do this challenge next year. It was really hard, but it was hard in a way that's really exciting. And so I definitely recommend doing this challenge. I have some further thoughts about what I might do going forward before I get to June, because I think that the format's really exciting for other media, but I'll talk about that after I show you all my 30 by 30 Direct Watercolor Challenge paintings. Okay, I'm going to tell you one of the things I would do differently first, right away, right now, because this is what it's definitely going to make this video a little more challenging. I will definitely choose either one sketchbook, I've got 4, or do all of my paintings on single loose paper so it isn't such a chaotic mess. But I would definitely have started in one book and finished all 30 paintings at one time. So this was my first painting. I did this in our backyard. It was my husband's plants, and I thought, woohoo, I'm on roll. I love this format. I love this size, and I really like what I created. I had a wonderful time hanging out outside with my plants and listening to lots of construction noises in my neighborhood for this one. And I thought, this is going to be super fun, not going to be a problem. Well, then we get to day 2, which is also in this book, but after that, it was the last 2 pages that I had available. It was too hot for me to paint outside the next day. So I had my husband get me I said, go to the store, get gorgeous fruit. He came home with lychees, which I found out I think are really gorgeous. I don't like the taste of them at all. Not at all, but they're super fun to paint. However, lychees are gorgeous, and I'm really happy with how I got the color matching on this, but this was a really difficult subject to paint. It was a far too large of a piece of paper for me to be doing these itty bitty fruits. These are done to life size. not nearly enough of them to be able to fill. These are very expensive fruits, so there weren't a lot of them for me to paint. And I had a great time, but I was really getting lost in the details, because if you've ever seen a lychee or lychee, how do you say that word? I'm not sure. They're very spiky, lots of crevices, whatever. I ended up getting lost in the details. I still like this painting. It was a lot of a learning process, but I felt like I started strong. Where did that one go? See, this is why you do this challenge in one sketchbook. Not that everybody's going to want to video it, but I felt I started strong here, and zoom, I realized here's where, yeah, you're probably laughing at me like, figure this out, Michelle. You know which page is which. There you go. And then we come to this next one. So it was like big start and then crash. So I knew I was in for an interesting long haul. And that's why I have these all numbered, hopefully to help me. Although now I realize my number system is not necessarily on both sides. So I obviously didn't paint in order of, oh, and some of my numbers have fallen off. I'm just catching this live on film. So to be able to make the challenge work, don't look at this, this one's not the right day. To be able to make this challenge work, I had to sometimes paint 2 paintings in one day. So this is my second pass at the lychees, was painting number 3. So that, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to paint on Mondays and Wednesdays because my days were always booked. So I painted 2 paintings on the day before, like this is a Sunday painting. I did 2 in one day. I felt like I got a lot more loose in here, but obviously crash and burn on my bowl and all those things. But again, this wasn't about making beautiful paintings. This was about having fun and just getting into some practice. So that was 3. Let's see if I can find 4. I may have to end up, I need to have my list. I made a list. So as I painted, I also took notes. See, this is how my brain works. I also took notes about how it was going, what I used, what I was looking and focusing on, etc., etc. So I'm going to need to use this because I thought that these little stickies were going to work, and they did for 3 paintings. And now I need to take a look at my notes. So my next one, oh, was in a different sketchbook. That's why I can't find it. So I painted on 9x12 sizes, 6x6, and I think this is 9x5, something of that nature. So I went all over the place as far as size because I had all these different sketchbooks. And then this was a crepe myrtle. Again, I did not paint this outside. It was 1,000,000,000 degrees, but I went outside to my neighbor's yard. He gave me permission to cut his crepe myrtles, which are a gorgeous flower. And I'm gonna see if I can zoom in for you guys on these petals. One of the things that I thought was the most fascinating with this particular subject is until I'd seen the crepe myrtle up close, I had no idea they had all these beautiful little tendrils and these elegant little doodly bobs. I don't know. Crepe myrtles, when you drive by them, and they're everywhere in South Texas, they are these big fluffy plants of color. And I had no idea that they were so delicate. So I'm really thankful for this challenge to say, hey, how do I make today work? It's 1,000,000,000 degrees. Let's bring in some crepe myrtles. And I thought that turned out to be I'm happy with this painting, but mostly I'm just like, wow, I'm a new big crepe myrtle fan. And I want to go around looking at all the other colors because they come in a variety of colors here in Texas. I do remember, there it is. There's painting 5. Let me put these to the side for a second. Disregard that. That was done on a different day. Has nothing to do with this challenge. This was another crepe myrtle that my neighbor let me cut. But I just wanted to focus, and I was really trying to be loose. Loose is hard, y'all. Loose is hard. I like details. If you can't tell, I get very detailed. I come from black line drawing, so it makes sense that I should be so detail focused. But this was just a crepe myrtle branch, and I was really interested in just studying these organic shapes and getting a match on the colors. And I felt pretty successful about that with this one. So the next day, it was a little bit cooler, not much. I think it's over this way. There we go. These are fire wheels that my son and husband gave me for Mother's Day that we'd had to plant outside. And I was trying to go as fast as possible because this was
This was the last day I could paint sitting on the ground on my picnic blanket that I have just for painting, because the ants decided that they needed to get their drinks of water from all of my watercolor supplies, because summer in Texas is hot. And they were like, they feasted, they were all in. By the time I looked up, they were all over my palette. I'm like, okay, I can't share space with the ants. I've got to think of a new strategy for being outside. So I painted this one as fast as possible, and I am pretty happy with it. It's got the energy of Fire Wheels, most definitely. The next one I did, because the summer, you know, started really earnestly summering, was a painting that this one's one of the only paintings I did from a photo. Let me see, this is probably distracting. There we go. I did this from a photo. One of my dearest friends, Kristen Martel, she lives in Puerto Rico, and she's constantly sending me encouragement about what's going on with my family and sending me beautiful pictures and smiles to make me, you know, just to brighten my day. She knows what it's like to be a mom having your kid going through something as major as cancer. And so I'm calling this one Kristen's Paradise. This is a view of one of her morning walks, and none of my paintings are this full. This day I obviously painted inside, and I got distracted with the detail and the color and the emotion behind it, because it was one of my friends that was trying to cheer me up, and I wanted her to be seeing this painting and being like, oh, thank you, blah, 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 blah. Obviously got really lost in it. I can't even tell you how long this one took me. It was much longer than all the others. There are things that failed. There are things that I find successful. All in all, it was a beautiful experience, and I'm glad that I did it, even though it kind of broke a lot of the rules of the challenge. I still painted directly. There's not a single bit of draw. I didn't draw at all with this challenge. I decided I'm someone who leans on lines. Let's see if I can pull back from that. And so this one was the only one that I did from a photo. This painting. So we go from something that I feel is semi-successful, and I'm really happy with this one. I've had this up in the studio for me to look at, to crash and burn. This is a dying shed that I had been wanting to paint just because I thought it was interesting shapes and what have you. And this is where I learned that I need to spend a little more time studying architecture. There are things I like about it. I got the colors right. You know, the energy here, the clouds, whatever, the fence, yeah. But this is not my best work, y'all. And I started, and I'm like, this is already failing, let's try again. I only had one piece of paper outside with me. I'm like, well, we're still not doing so great, but by golly, we're going with it. And this challenge is not about perfect paintings, it's about painting. I did it, I didn't draw anything with it, I survived the heat. This day, oh no, it wasn't this day, I'll tell you that story in just a second. It was another day where I was painting in a similar location, but a completely different subject. All right, so we've got to come back to this itty bitty book. So in here somewhere, yeah, see, I've got these numbers all over the place. I'm sorry, I had a plan and it unplanned itself. This was which day was that? Day 9, painting 9. And I started working with a limited palette. I also, in this one, I had extra paint, and I painted a whole bunch of sketchbook pages, like this one, and another one I'll show you, where it went totally pink. Like I like prepped them like you would an acrylic painting or an oil painting. I just prepped the surface, toned it, and I was like, what's it going to be like to paint over a completely painted page? And so it's just an idea I had for this challenge, because I didn't want to waste any paint. And it was really interesting to try and create a true lemon yellow over a pink surface. The thing that I really like about this one, let me zoom you in one more time. Let's see if I can get this right. If we get closer, look at the granulation on this box. I just love it. And it's because I used a cobalt turquoise light in here to create this like box look. And I could stare at that all day. That color combination there was really interesting. I'm happy that I did it. But I only used these colors over here that you see to create this look, to create this painting. And I love painting lemons. I just find them to be so interesting when they make these shadows. Like there's a shadow here and here and here and here and here and here and here. I had 3 different light sources coming in on this. The other one I did, this is one of those double days, I believe. Just a simple pear. He was just a kind of a funky looking little guy with his odd shape. And again, I really was diving into the, look at the subtle shadow here, subtle shadow here, subtle shadow. Say that 5 times. Subtle shadow. And I did work with a limited palette over here and a toned surface. And I really enjoy them. They're not loose. I mean, we're always trying for loose in watercolor, but I also really like to get like into the detail, into the nitty gritty. And with this, I was getting into the nitty gritty. Let me see if I can zoom you in there in a way that makes sense for the camera. I was zooming in on the flesh, all of the different colors, the greens, the grays, the pinks, the yellows, the oranges, pulling those, the red towards the green without making brown. That's what I was really focusing on with this itty bitty pear. And, you know, his shape was super fun as well. This was during a time when it got very hot. And so I was doing I was taking things from outside, bringing them inside. So semi-plain, it wasn't plein air, but it was definitely from life. This was number 11. This was a bloom that fell down from our plumeria. Texas may be hot, Texas may be humid, but we can grow some pretty amazing tropical plants, and our plumeria does really, really well. And what this one was done very quickly right before one of my son's doctor's appointments in San Antonio, which takes us a while to get to. And I was just throwing color down, but I really wanted to get this, the lushness of the leaves. I feel like I probably tested the paper of this sketchbook a little too much, but I'm still really happy with the texture that I created of this single bloom. All right, moving into a new sketchbook. Not a new sketchbook, but going back to the one that I have to go back and forth, back and forth. This one, let me get this out of the way. This, number 12, was a desert willow. So this is one of our plants in our backyard. And you'll see here, this is also a toned page. I had this kind of a deserty pink color, or peach, excuse me, that I did. And with this particular painting, I don't know if you can tell, but I started with the blooms first. So none of the leaves, none of the back of the tree. I did the blooms. I wanted to see if I could paint the subject's flowers. That's the reason why I really wanted it, and then paint everything else around it. I really like how it came out, but the reason why this painting is so special to me is right in the middle of this painting, I had a hummingbird just hover literally right in front of my face, studying me. And I was like, I mean, hummingbirds are feisty little creatures. Was he studying me to say hello? Were we having like a Snow White or Sleeping Beauty moment and I'm communing with the critters? Or was he saying, what the hey, I was gonna drink from these flowers and now you're making me really, really uncomfortable. Can you please leave? But if it was a communion moment or it was a combative moment, with a hummingbird it can be either. It was a really special moment to me, painting in plein air, and it became one of the reasons why I was like, I really love painting outside. All right, next one. Oh, it's good, it's still in this book. This is my good friend Lisa's ponytail plant, which she informed me I was painting at her house. It was my first time sharing this challenge with someone else. She didn't do the challenge, but I was, wanting to see, can I keep up with the challenge and be with people at the same time? This painting isn't as successful as some of my others, I don't think, but I was painting inside. I was painting away from a space that was my own. I was painting somebody else's plant. I still really feel like I got the jauntiness of her plant, which she said is older than her marriage. So I think that's really awesome. And she's been married quite some time. She's got 2 adult children, but she has made this plant survive through all of their married life, before their married life, actually. So this is a ponytail plant. That was, let's see, painting number 13. Painting 14, my fence flowers. And that was, where did that one go? Oh, that's in here. That was another sheet. So these were some flowers growing along our fence that I cut and brought inside with the house. And because I was frustrated with this was multiple days of having to paint inside, which was really frustrating to me, I decided that I would make this challenge a little more challenging by choosing to do just one brush. So I believe, no, excuse me, I just brought out the wrong brush. That was for a different painting. This brush, excuse me, not this brush. This painting was created with one brush and one brush alone. I painted this entire piece with the dagger brush, which I'd never tried before. So every time I did a painting, I wanted to kind of up the challenge factor. I don't know why I did that. I don't know why I made it harder for myself every time. I think it was just, you know, I can't follow the rules because I have to paint inside and I can't paint in plein air and from life. So I made it harder. It doesn't make sense. But I kind of like what happened here. It's very, I don't want to word that was jaunty. I'm trying to think of the word. It's very emotive, I guess. I don't know. Whatever the word is, my husband really liked it. And this one I was also trying out a new paper that my friend Lisa let me borrow. It's a Hanamulla paper, which I'd never tried. And I found that kind of interesting. Moving along, those are my fence flowers. Oh, and there's another one in here that was loose. This was the other side of the Hanamulla paper. This one I also did with a single brush because, again, had to bring the outside in. This was a marigold that volunteered in our backyard, just one flower. I felt bad about bringing it inside. I would have preferred to paint it outside, but it was over 105 degrees and our air piece is like 90% humidity. So this one was all painted with a angle shader brush. I mean, I think you can kind of tell, right, that this was painted with this sharp, edgy kind of brush, and this one was painted with this long kind of, you know, pointy weirdness. So I think that's interesting. I don't know if anyone else does, but I think you can feel which brush painted which painting. So moving right along, and this is pretty simple. Had to bring it inside. It's a pot. I had to paint this one really quickly. This was approaching when we were gonna get ready for my son Sam to be having 2 days worth of surgery, but I was trying my best to keep up with my challenge. And I love painting pots. This wasn't the painting that showed me that, but if you can't tell, I obviously spent way more time with the pot and focusing on all of that. And the jade plant got a little less of my attention, or a little less of my time, I should say. So moving on back to this one, back and forth, so this is silly. Go ahead and laugh at me. This is a Bridgerton tree. So to get through all the stress of what we were going through with my son heading into a really scary medical procedure, I was watching a lot of Bridgerton this summer. I mean, season 3 came out, and what am I saying? Season 3, pollen all the way. And I painted a Bridgerton tree with it. I mean, it wasn't from life. I wasn't looking at the screen. It was just, my energies were here. I painted from my imagination. I guess that's against the rules, but there's no drawing. I was just listening to the soundtrack because I love it, and I painted this tree. I wanted to focus, this is painting 18, so we're over halfway through. I wanted to focus on people. I don't really focus on human beings. They tend to get lost from my attention. And so this particular painting, I was trying out again since I was inside. I was trying out brushes only, and I believe, let me see, make sure I always take notes. Yeah, this is my Neptune 10. I painted the whole painting with this particular brush just to see what would happen. And I think it's kind of fun. I think I'll probably end up painting more people, because just like clothing them, it's kind of like when we played paper dolls, or if you had any Barbies or anything that you would dress, even those little critters that kids get to play with now and they change their clothes. That was the fun part, was like deciding what each person was going to wear. What color, do you have a purse, do you have a bag, do you have a backpack, do you have a crossbody? Are you wearing pants? Are you wearing a jacket? Are you wearing a scarf? That was actually really kind of fun. So much fun that I did it again. So painting, let's see, what number are we on? Painting 19? Yeah. I did it again. So in this one over here, painting 19, I already had these swooshes of color. So I did these little people with a completely different brush. I think yeah, it's right over here. Can you hear me when I walk away from my speaker or my microphone? I did this with a liner. which I think you can tell the difference. These people have a different feel to them. And I think I would probably stick with the liner brush with these are the people I like the most, the shapes. But again, it was so fun dressing them. There we go, hip painting 20. This is called a witch's ball. And this was the moment where I realized I don't know how to get a pot and what's in the pot in the same page. And I struggled with that. I struggled so hard with that. I finally got it like by painting 29, but I'll show you that later. The witch's, it's called a witch's ball. I think it's a garden thingy. I planted it, or my husband planted it for me, and so it's an object in my studio. This is again when it was just so freaking hot here in Texas. I really, I could have done better with this ball, but I was just falling in love with the colors, and I was playing with purples in this one with terracotta, because orange and purple are complementary colors, and I wanted to see what would happen if I played up that in this particular painting. I was getting really excited about this challenge, and when we went into San Antonio for one of my son's appointments, we went to Jerry's Artorama, and I wanted to get another sketchbook. Well, they didn't have what I was looking for, but they did have this. It's like a sketchbook that's much larger. This is 25% cotton. I should probably put the painting down here. And I got super excited about it, and so of course I went and did a 30 by 30 watercolor painting in here, but I'm like, I need to split it up. I never got back to this sketchbook because while I like it, and I did like the paper for sketchbooks or doing preparatory paintings or studies, I think I like it a little bit better than, say, I know I like it better than this sketchbook, which I won't even tell you what it's called, because, well, maybe I will, so you won't, if you think how I think, you wouldn't buy it. But this is basically a weed tree that I clipped from the yard, stuck it in a kneading eraser, put a harsh light on it, and then I just decided I want to paint the shadow, I want to paint the leaves. And I think I did it again with my dagger brush, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so right there, that's my Elite dagger. All right, the next painting, I know, there it is. This is one of our saucer hibiscuses. I kid you not. I mean, I shouldn't say this because I feel like that's pretty successful. You can see how the light was coming, the bloom, its incredibleness. I love how I got the angle. It's very loose. But y'all, I really thought I was going to get a pot in here. I don't know how I thought I was going to get a pot in here. I started the blue and I'm like, what was I thinking? The flower is taking up the entire page. So I just went with it, and it became a floating flower in space. I did this one. I was painting 23. This is the pot that this flower was in. There was no way I was going to get this pot in that painting. But I thought it would be a perfect companion for this one, where I failed again to get what's in the pot in the painting. So this is my I can only focus on pots page, or spread as they say. It was quite a while until I was back at painting. But this was my first painting back, where I hadn't painted for, well, this is for 2 weeks. I think I hadn't painted because it took quite some, we were in hospital for an entire week and then recovery after that. So this is one of my husband's, crazy plants. I can't tell you what it is because he doesn't know. But why is this one successful besides the fact that I really love how the pot turned out? I got the pot and the plant in the same page. Success! Only took me 24 paintings to get to that point. This is painting 25. Along with that shed, I feel like this is one of my less successful paintings. I was painting with a friend again, and I had a whole idea of what I was going to paint. And I got lost in our conversation. And all of a sudden I looked up and I'm like, this isn't going to work. And so I was like, I'm just going to make marks. We're just going to make marks all over. And then down here, these are pots from my imagination and plants from my imagination. I'm like, let's just face it. I need to practice painting with people and paying attention to them and to my subject at the same time. Painting 26. So with this one, I tried something new to me, and that's using this sponge. It's an organic sea sponge that you can get at the art store. And I did it I wanted to create kind of it was a misty morning, so I used an ultramarine violet to create this background on the sponge, which, by the way, sponges rinse out really, really well. I was thinking perhaps it would be one and done, but it's not. You can see a little tinge of purple here, but I later then came back because it got too hot once again. I'm like, I wasn't done with the tree. I focused. Guess where I focused first, y'all? The pots. And yeah, I ran out of time, and so I quickly was using this to create really loose foliage here. I didn't use the sponge down here with the foliage, but yeah, I mean, I find this, I like this. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of geraniums, but I love the colors that were coming out that day, and it's so surprising to me. It can be so miserable hot here in Texas, and we can have some gorgeous, gorgeous flowers. Makes you want to go outside and spend time with them, but then doing so puts your health at risk. There we go, 27. This painting, I was painting some really itty bitty flowers sitting in a chair, and they're way far away. They were not quite white, not quite pink. So I'm happy with my colors. I'm happy with the energy and everything. This was the first time, though, that I painted outside in my front yard where people could see me. And I discovered I have a fear of being seen while I make work. And I can feel the nervousness in this. My husband did, and when he looked at it, he's like, oh, I love it. I'm like, yeah, but. So another thing I learned from this challenge, I need to go out to places where other people are and get comfortable making art in the presence of strangers. That was painting 27. Here's painting 28. This was a tough day. I had a lot of interruptions. I was outside, but I had a lot of interruptions because we were dealing with some information about my son's health post-surgical, and people needed to talk to me, and I was trying to paint at the same time. I'm not happy with the pot. Can you tell that I didn't get to really do what I wanted to do? The pot got second attention. I was focused on the flowers. The flowers and the leaves were where I started because I was trying to get the pot and the plant in the page. But then I got interrupted, and you can see what happened with the rest of the painting. Still, it's not a failed painting. It's just there's a story behind it, and maybe I shouldn't tell it to anybody, but that's not what a YouTube video is about. If you stuck with me here, thank you. You might be able to sense a similarity between 28 and 29. These are the same plant, but a different view. So I still wanted to come back and spend some time with this plant because the flowers, this gentle white, yellow, orange thing was just really interesting to me, and then the deep, deep green of the leaves. But I zoomed in, so I just kind of pretended like my eye was a camera, and I cropped into I was sitting far away in the shade, and just cropped into it. And I really like how this turned out. I feel like together they're kind of fun to look at. And I obviously went wild and big. I was trying to use my biggest brush, which was only a size 8. And I was battling the heat as well because it was drying my paper, my paint, my brush, the paint on the paintbrush was drying before I could get it to the paper. So I learned from this painting that I want to get larger paintbrushes or paintbrush heads so that I can do something like this in the weather that I have much more quickly. And then here's 30. You'd think it would end with a crash, bang, boom, like a big cymbal thrust. But it ends with maybe it's not, like I just realized, it ends with a dun da da da, a pot, which I just was digging into the pot. I loved every second of that. And then it started to get bloomin' hot, and I was beginning to wonder if I was being stupid from spending so much time outside. Was I going to get heat exhaustion? I mean, I did get the colors right and all of that, but I can tell, like, wow, I could barely get this wash down. My brush kept drying. I'm like, I've got to paint fast, and I have to finish right now. Otherwise, I'm going to fry. But this was painting 30. This was also August 13th versus the first painting that I painted outside on June 1st. I don't know, can you, sorry, this is taking me so long to go back and forth. Can you feel the heat difference between these two paintings? It's a real, I wonder, can you tell? But here I was even in the sun for a little bit on this one. And here I was desperately in the shade. The sun was blinding me. I couldn't see my colors. I couldn't see my page, but I was just, yeah. I wonder if you can feel the difference. Can you feel the heat?
Well, that was quite the tour, wasn't it? I just looked at how long that footage took. It took 39 minutes for me to do that. So I'm going to have to do some deep editing on that video, but I hope you enjoy the pieces that I decide to keep in the whole thing. So the 4 things that I learned from doing this. 1, I would have done it in one sketchbook or on loose leaf paper, all cut to the same size. Let's see, I would pick a theme, I think, next time. There seems to be a theme in mine. Lots of natural stuff, lots of flowers, lots of plants. I think I would pick one though. I'd try to pick it, or the best that I could. Another thing I would do differently, number 3, I might do it at a different time of year. So I know that this particular challenge runs like across the world through the creators. They run this challenge in June. They don't live in South Texas. They live in the northern parts of the world. I think I might try this in April and just do it on my own. And the last thing, I think, I got a little bit lonely not, sharing about this process with people because, well, it was hot, so I really couldn't ask my friends to come outside. I only did that twice, and I obviously need practice with that. But I think I will blog about it as best I can. Every time I think I'm going to do something on a regular basis that's social, I always find that things get in the way. But I think I might blog about it a little bit so that I could get feedback and share the journey with people, because I found myself wanting to talk about this process and talk about the things that I learned. And I didn't really have a place to do that. But we did have what they called, it was really nice, but I'm sticking with it, a Michelleabration when I was finished. So at the end of the painting process, we had some champagne and sat in our front room, and I took out all those sketchbooks and I showed them one by one, each piece and what I learned, and I got their feedback, and the things that they thought were successful were surprising to me, because I'm like, really? You like that? Wow, that was a mistake. And then also things that they didn't like. I'm like, oh no, I love that. I'm sorry, you're wrong. So it was a really fun way. The Michelleabration will definitely happen again the next time I do this challenge. I have more to say on this. Obviously, I can't stop talking about this painting project. So if you're interested in doing a 30 by 30 painting challenge, watercolor, direct watercolor, I'm actually going to morph this into like a 30 by 30 acrylic challenge. I'm going to do gouache. I have to wait for it to get a little bit cooler, but that's what we're going to do. I'm going to do a 30 by 30 acrylic gouache challenge probably in October. I guess that's 31 by 31. You could also do it in oil pastel. I think that would be super fun. Again, if you live in my part of the world, that is a winter, early spring challenge. Otherwise, you will have pools of really expensive oil pastel instead of, art supplies. Another one would be like with colored pencils. I can really see this being interesting. Not drawing and having to make art with colored pencils for 30 days. That would be a huge challenge for me. So I hope you enjoyed this tour. I know it was long. Thank you for sticking with me. If you did, if you're seeing the outro here, and if you like what I'm sharing about, please do give my channel a subscribe and share this with someone if you think that they'd be interested in having their lunch or a cup of coffee over this. So until next time, and I hope it's sooner than 6 months. We're getting into a decent stage right now with my son's cancer. So I'm really hopeful that I'll be able to see you at least once a month. So thanks for watching, and have a great day.